Bonjour à tous. Cette année, il va terminer. Et je pensais prendre la vidéo et je présente encore. Je vis dans la province Québec et je suis content et j'ai continué pour la chercher en philosophie. Parce que j'habite beaucoup dehors du Québec, lisez-moi, je parle en anglais. Okay, right now we concluded on nature of the paradox, and I did not post on a column on Instagram for last part. Regarding the branch of my research on the philosophy is related to the more philosophy of science, because the new generation in the 21st century and next century, by this artificial intelligence and such this smartphone and the cell phone with the computer and media and virtual bombarding and explosion of information, the people and young students and new generation, they are all educated and they know the basic information of the chemistry, physics, mathematics, biology. And if the philosophy want to be biased and obsolete, which cannot be understood, uh, or as a new generation, they don't they thinking this philosophy they cannot help an update for a new life. So the philosophy destiny should be in the future like other traditional issue. Therefore, philosophy, we need a philosophy because the most of the scientists, physician, neurologists, cardiologists, engineering, chemistry, metallurgy, and the physician and biologist, they need something to read, which they escape them beyond of the routine life, and beside the art and the poetry and poems and the painting or other or music art, and orchestra or something, they still need something to read which is related to the science and make a more comfortable and a cozy life. And that's why philosophy always will be alive. And one of those parts which I interpreted in transcendental reason was related to the Kant, because very relevant to the science and the cognitive concept. And so all is respectful, ethic, metaphysic, or philosophy of art or philosophy of culture or sociology, but uh, future is more belong to the philosophy of science and logic and philosophy of mathematics, and philosophy of chemistry and biology is a philosophy of the current century and the future. In conclusion of the nature of the paradox, I tried as a proof, all the genesis of the nature is related to the quarks, and quarks has a mass and the charge, and positive and negative is make atoms in the electron and proton, and just the mass in neutron and the other parts and particles which will be discovered, because always the science on a track of the development and processing. So this is the nature of the our solar system, and Earth is one of the main part by such it is water, and this evolution of RNA and DNA after 4 billion years to make a microorganism like a bacteria and viruses, and finally prokaryote, eukaryote, and Homo sapiens, which we are, who first genus make a electromagnet in the front lobe to make signify and symbolize the painting, and after as the alphabet make a language, make a concept, and make a by alphabet again make a equation or formula in the science and the biology. Anything which we started, for example, say oxygen, O, so is alphabet, or you said F equal ma, first law of the Newton. F is a letter, or M. All is attribute for the equation of a formula to make a proof of the reality. But the point is here, so if the atom is based on the paradox of the charge, all point of the our word is based on this negative and positive charge, and life as such is continue. But what I am trying to conclude is related to the ponty. Let me bring up my notes here, which I did not post on Instagram, and yes, Ponty in 1948 made a lecture of perception, and perception is one entity inside of our mind. So I made the last part of the nature of paradox, which has been based on a style of the writing of the Spinoza, based on a proposition, proof, and notes. So I concluded the nature of the paradox by Ponty. Ponty in 1948 made one lecture, is word of the perception and word of the science. So I concluded by this proposition: posteriori restricts skepticism of dualism Descartes to pass through from appearance, sensory, or common sense to the realism of perception. Merleau Ponty. Proof. The reason is that at 21st century, by means of AI, artificial intelligence technology in biology, especially MRI, magnetic resonance imaging, and the developing knowledge of thermodynamic and neurology to return our home at monoism. Note: Merleau-Ponty in 1948 was the last modern philosopher, whereas posteriori at this treatise on nature of paradox proved that philosophy, after 77 years of his time, yet is on a track of evolve and developing as a science to show us more evidences from transcendental or sensory. Ponty, on the word of perception, the word of science, cited his quotation: "The word of perception, that is the word which is revealed to us by our senses in everyday life, seems at first glance to be one we now beast." Beast is the other name of the animal. And he continues: "For neither institution nor calculation are needed to access it, and it would seem that simply by opening our eyes and living we fathom it." Fathom it means difficult understanding in an enigmatic way. Okay, end of the his quotation. Now, what the philosophy of posteriori, or which I wrote: while posteriori searches and speculates the future measurement of how much calories consumes at the front lobe or mind to make a one concept or calculate one engineering issue at our object material by measurement and calculation of rotation, lipid chain, and number of spiral magnetic wave to approach monoism by new technology of computerized quantum at end of 20th century. Ponty right now quotation what the Ponty said. However, this is a false appearance. I hope to show in these talks that it is largely ignored as long as we remain in the practical or utilitarian attitude. A lot of time, efforts, and culture were needed to lay it bare, and that the merit of modern art and thought of the last 57 years has been to make us rediscover this world in which we live, but are always prone to forget. This is particularly true in France. It is characterized not just of the French philosophy, but of what is loosely called the French mind, to hold science and scientific knowledge in such a high esteem that all our lived experience of a world seems by contrast to be of little value. If I want to know what light is, must I not address the physicist? Is it not be who tells me if light is, at once thought, a bombardment of glowing particles or vibration in the ether, or finally, as accepted by more recent theory, a phenomenon similar to the electromagnetic oscillation? What use it to consult our senses here? Why dwell on what our perception teaches us of color, reflection, and the object that bear them? For these obviously are just appearances, and only the methodical knowledge of scientists, his measurement, experiment, can free us from the illusions of our senses and give us access to the true nature of things. Does the progress of knowledge in forgetting what our senses tells us, what we can consult them naively, and for which there is no place in a true picture of the world? The true world for scientists isn't of light, colors, and this fleshy spectacle which passes before my eyes. It is the waves and particles which science tells us lie behind this sensory phantasm. Illusionary. Okay, end of the quote. So now has a skeptical riddle irony lecture by some questions. What the philosopher pursued to answer, and okay, the first of all, he's the best my partner for conversation. As I said, he's in the philosophy of the science and perception, but still we need evolution. So our critique, it means he is a value, but I want to make him more valid and sound in the argument and contention. So my answer is, while Ponty by skepticism riddle perplexity from our weakness, common sense into reality and fact of matter beyond of our attribution, transcendental reason try to have a less ignorance and paradox by bringing more practical science facts into our perception through how physiological neurons at our mind has a function by approaching all cultures in a common senses of scienticism to have a reduction of art like a painting, poem, and philosophy with science as the essence. Art is our energy in production, neurotic magnetism at the track of reductionism of monoism. Puzzle as a such a riddle context in 1948 from Ponty is relevant to his time and space, whence utmost achievement and accomplishment is relatively Einstein and nuclear bomb to eradicate Second World War, and also France geopolitical with Portugal, Spain, and Italy in compared with the Germany and Britain. By this consideration, at 2026, we are living with our cell phone in quantum computer by explosion media information through artificial intelligence. Thus, Ponty had attempted to reconcile the illusion of a fathom as his oscillation with reality of science through Descartes or Cartesian, while philosophy in Canada at this time and space with plasma of Arctic aurora in its geometry with two oceans and self-propelling people at capital beyond of any restriction at which Europe has. Therefore, posteriori has its language in perception, which is equation scientific has posteriori has its language in perception, which is equation scientific formula. Even ether. Ether is the upper sky, but is a chemical material in the laboratory. Even ether, in language of this philosophy, must resonate the organic chemical matter as R bonds OR by its characterized at boiling and melting points and properties in anesthesia or solvent, and not clear upper cloud sky in traditional philosophy instead. Thus, as explained in Philosophy of Geometry, the volume 2nd, 2024-5, all words in language are signified in magnetic geometry of wave at brain. Hereby, we pass through uncertainty riddle style of writing on particles of light or ether to approach from dualism into the monoism, like all entities, organism at ocean live in a water of our magnetic function in front lobe of thought. Then science and art are at one prevalence, and my attempts is to focus on bringing light of science into the cave of Platonic to reduce paradox or philosophy, the paradox or physiology of body between electromagnet, hyperbolic geometry, and Euclidean one at the rest of body system, which are environmental objects. Thus, the extension mirage from sensory into our dictionary vocabularies like illusion, delusion, figment, apparition, phantasm, ghost, soul, spirit, faith, and belief, which have roots into the lack of knowledge or science research at neuron physiology. Yet, as a paradox, infinity essence versus our finite body at surrounded objects, and this is a philosophy of migration like a seed spruce looking for soil and to imbibe water by light of photosynthesis to be a seedling for future generation in constructive mind. This is the first part of the this lecture, and in second part I continue what the uh, ponty said on a wax of material from Descartes, and how the argument, the ponty is continued, and what's the posteriori critique and argument on a ponty conversational lecture. Thank you very much, and have a great year in a new year, and hopefully we have a more symposium in first step with all the scientists in a laboratory of the physics, chemistry, and biology on all campuses inside of the Canada and in the world. Thank you very much. Have a great year.